played games at every chance I could. I took on everyone. I was unstoppable. I had enjoyed music, film, and television. But to me, video games really were the highest art form.
Calling Horace a platformer is selling it short. It's a 10-hour-long, story-driven puzzle platformer collectathon telling the story of a little yellow robot named Horace. I'm using the word story too much. Doesn't matter. The story begins with the creation of our protagonist and his delivery to his owner, simply known as the Old Man. Most of the story is told in charmingly blocky cutscenes entirely narrated by Horace, which is to say, text-to-speech. I know that sounds like a meme, but the strength of the writing carries the plot on its own. By the end, you will have become attached to that robot voice as if it belonged to a person. Everything is seen from Horace's point of view, and his initially innocent, gullible, and very much robotic personality ensure a constant stream of wholesomeness and hilarity. For most of the game, you will be running and jumping through obstacle courses. For an added twist, Horace's shoes allow him to walk up walls and on ceilings. Sticking to a surface will also flip which direction gravity pulls you. This mechanic puts the puzzle in puzzle platformer. Using it, you'll be able to cleverly avoid danger, like bypassing horizontal hazards by falling past them. Just be careful not to launch yourself into orbit, although I recommend doing it at least once. The flipping mechanic works fairly reliably, though it has some unfortunate side effects. Firstly, the camera will quickly rotate to match your orientation. I don't usually suffer from motion sickness, but there are instances where the camera will change several times over a few seconds. This is disorienting and at times dizzying. Secondly, you don't have control over whether you walk up or down walls. Many platformers have a hidden mechanic commonly called coyote time. It basically means that you have a small window of time to jump even after your character has walked off the platform. If you jump too late in Horace, he will instead walk straight down and then hurl himself into something extremely unpleasant. I think it'd be nice to have the option to bind the gravity shoes to one of the triggers, allowing for greater accuracy. But of course, this issue can be alleviated by getting good. And after a total of 753 deaths, I think I did. The platforming is solid, and the level design creates a nigh-perfect difficulty curve. But gameplay is not the only way Horace excels. The story is a whirlwind of humanity and feels in italics. Horace spends the first act learning about humanity and its achievements. He discovers his love for the arts and is particularly fond of classical music and video games. These will play an important role in his life going forward. While his passion for pop culture is often simply used for hit-or-miss reference humor, it also manifests in more meaningful ways as his adventure continues. Much of the game's music consists of 8 or 16-bit versions of well-known classical pieces and parodies of film and game music. I couldn't help but imagine that the songs you hear play in Horace's head as well. It's one of the ways Horace as a character becomes more human. He's just a guy who really likes music, and the use of works such as Für Elise and Dies Irae will always remind you of that fact. Throughout the world you will encounter mini-games parodying other video games, like Pac-Man, Pong, and Space Invaders. Having prior experience with the classics will prove valuable in these situations. It creates an interesting connection between Horace and the player. You will face challenges completely removed from the core platforming gameplay, but using your knowledge of the games Horace loves, you can overcome these obstacles. One example of this would be the Breakout-style hacking minigame. Horace is able to beat it because it's just like a game he's played before, and the same goes for the player. In a way, Horace as a game is almost like a practical exam on video games as a whole. At its core, it is a super tough precision platformer, the bread and butter of the medium. It then adds gravity gimmicks that turn every room into a navigational puzzle. And just as I thought, okay, so it's also a puzzle game, I suddenly found myself facing a chapter that's almost entirely stealth-based. And once I had gotten used to that, Horace decides to turn into a Metroidvania for a few hours. And I do mean Metroidvania. with a sprawling map, power-ups, bosses, and some of the most nail-biting platforming I've seen since The Path of Pain and Hollow Knight. You never really know where Horace will go next, both in terms of gameplay and story, and that is a big part of why it captivated me the way it did. A quick word of warning, Horace, despite its adorable appearance and initially feel-good story, is not a game for children. The places this game goes and the themes it explores are surprisingly dark. There's also some bad language, which I don't mind, but protective parents might. Horace is quite the achievement, especially considering it was made by just 2 people. It's a love letter not just to video games, but to achievements of human culture as a whole. Horace is available on PC. If you've been making sure to pick up the weekly free games on the Epic Store, you might already own it. Don't overlook Horace. Do you know of any games that didn't get the attention they deserve? Are you... Okay. Are you an indie developer and would like me to review your game in time for launch? Hit me up on Twitter or in the comments. If I like the game, I'll feature it. If you want to help introduce more awesome games to a larger audience, be sure to share this review with like your friends, your mom, your gamer cats. Like and subscribe, or dislike and leave a comment telling me what I should do better. Go play Horace, it's phenomenal. Goodbye.